talking about suicide among students. And in my freshman year of high school, going in, there were 2 suicides in my school. And one of them was a girl who was always involved in everything in school. So when she decided to commit suicide, no one really could understand why. And the second one was a football player, and he was also one of the best football players on the team. So both of their deaths were probably like a month apart from each other. So they were really like constant, and no one could understand why they took their lives. And until later on, like a few weeks later, the school released a little bit of information on why. And I guess the girl, she was constantly being bullied at school by a group of other girls because of her appearance, because of her weight, and also because of stuff that was going on in her home that one of the girls found out, and she spread it around, and they would always constantly bully her about it. And they bullied her so much that they led her to that breaking point. And for the football player, he was being bullied by the other football players because of his appearance too, and because of stuff that was going on at his home too. And not only would they just bully him verbally, but they would also bully him sometimes physically. And no one ever did anything about it. No one ever said anything about it. And the only reason the school found out about it was because after his death, one of the other players spoke out about it, about what was going on in the team. And so the school, what they did, they took care of both of the football players who did that to the guy, and the group of girls who did that to the girl, but that's all they did. And it wasn't until the following year which there was another suicide, and this one was, I guess, more public. Everybody kind of knew more about it because it was online, most of the bullying that they did on this girl. And it was because of a mistake she made on sending a video to a guy, and the guy sent it to his buddies, and his buddies uploaded it online, and then next thing she knew, everybody had seen it. And she was being called names around the school. Everybody who looked at her differently. Online, girls would always call her names. They would always attack her, and no one ever did anything about it. And because they just thought that, I guess, it would just pass on and it would all be over with, until probably a month after all of this had been happening, she committed suicide. Her sister found her in her room hanging, and one of my friends was actually her ex-boyfriend, and they had just broken up like a couple months back, so he was still really close to her family. So I was able to see how much her family was destroyed by this, especially her mom. And her mom even came up with like a suicide prevention group at her school, and she pushed the school to do more on it. So a week or two after that happened, our school started having like meetings for everybody in the school. They would just gather us, and they would bring like I guess like suicide prevention psychologists and stuff, and they would try talking to us and explain to us that if anything ever happened, we should talk to someone about it, not just try to handle it ourselves. And this worked for the remaining time that I was there, until a couple weeks, 2 weeks ago, I found out that another girl, she was a senior this year at my high school, she took her life too. And it was because of the same thing. A group of girls they were constantly bullying her online. No one did anything, no one spoke out, no one tried helping her, and they led her to her breaking point, I guess, and she took her life. And just being around all of this made me realize how much people's words and actions could take on someone. So today I'll first be talking about the problem, secondly I'll be talking about the cause, and lastly I'll be talking about the effect about all of this. So first, the problem is that suicides actually occur more often than people actually realize. And according to the Parent Resource Program, suicide is the second leading cause of death for ages 10 to 24 in the US. And when I saw this, I couldn't believe it, because I didn't think that, I didn't think that suicides were that common. I just thought maybe like at my school or something. But it just made me realize more of how big of a problem it is, and more because now it's becoming more of cyberbullying, because people tend to have a feeling of having more power over behind a screen. of attacking others because they're not face to face. And secondly, the cause for all these deaths are bullying and depression, and students or victims are often bullied so much that the attacker leads them into a deep depression in which they don't really speak out about what's happening to them, but they give off signs. But sadly, you know, parents and stuff around them, they don't realize these signs that these victims are giving out, and these victims are too scared to talk to anyone because they feel that they're going to be even more judged and attacked than they have already been. And according to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, depression is an underlying illness that can lead to suicide. And you know, the deep depression leads these victims to feel that they're uncared, that no one cares about them, that they shouldn't even, you know, keep living, and ultimately it leads them to taking their own lives. And the effects, according to the Community and Regional Resilience Institute, more teenagers and young adults die from suicide than from cancer, heart disease, AIDS, birth defects, stroke, pneumonia, influenza, and chronic lung disease combined. When I saw this, I couldn't believe that, you know, suicide was actually over all of these diseases, and it's just sad to see that people's actions lead people to take their own lives. So in conclusion, today I first talked about the problem, secondly I talked about the cause, and lastly I talked about the effects. And yeah, thank you.